Today's commercial credit professionals are under more and more pressure to meet targets. By getting the right strategies in place, we can considerably improve their business processes. So, how to get paid on time, every time. But is it possible? Well, we think so. We've spoken to 35 of the industry's top professionals in credit and collections and asked them what tools and what strategies they employ to ensure they get paid on time. We came out with some pretty sound advice and some top tips, and today I'd like to share the top 5 of those tips with you to ensure that you don't waste valuable time and resources chasing those late payments. So, let's have a look at slide number 1. Know your customer. Sounds obvious, doesn't it? Well, Joanna Ford at Bayer says, for smaller accounts that we do not visit, we find Google Maps very useful to get a better understanding of a customer's surroundings. Let's break that down and have a think about it. You get a new customer. On the surface, this business appears financially stable. You've got nothing to worry about. But appearances can be deceptive, and as we all know, the reality can be an entirely different thing. So, you should always check them out. There are some really basic things you can do. First, confirm the address details and the size of the company match the information that you've been given. You can do this using online tools such as Google Maps, thanks Joanna, or just pay the site a visit. They've told you they have 60 employees. Well, why not get in your car, drive down, and check that out? Stake them out if you have to. Secondly, establish if the company is a sole trader or part of a limited company. That way, you'll know who to chase up later on. And finally, make sure you get all of that information early on in your relationship, because if you don't, you're going to find it much harder to get at a later date. Strike while the iron is hot. Believe me, you won't have that opportunity again. Okay, it really sounds all very obvious, but by taking the right steps to get to know your customers and find out what's going on in their business from the outset, you can prevent a long list of potential payment problems further down the line. Okay, slide 2. Set up the right payment plan at the start. Obtain at least 3 trade references and ensure that the credit limit being applied for is in line with the limits given by the referees. And that's thanks to Sarah Googe at Publishers Group. Set up the right payment plan at the start. Again, we come back to preparing the groundwork in those early stages of the customer relationship. We're all more than aware that the current economic climate is slow. Getting new business is both time-consuming and tough to win right now. None of us want to let potential customers go, and once we have them, we certainly don't want to lose them. Therefore, it's really important to set up the right payment terms right at the start of your relationship. So how do we do this? Well, work out the best way to trade with each new customer and then tailor your approach to each specific one. Credit limits. What if you're unsure what credit limit to offer a new customer? In the first instance, get a credit report. It's a really reliable way to check out how a business is doing and what its financial situation is. As Sarah Googe has advised, you could request trade references. About 3 trade references should suffice, and these will tell you what you need to know, whether the credit limit is appropriate or realistic for that specific business. If you haven't got time to wait around for these trade references, as we all know, they can take up to a month to arrive, you could try getting the support of your peers through credit forum networks. This is another reliable way to get that insight that you need. And because it's a web-based network, it's fast. So, you've gathered all the information that you need, but you still have concerns. What can you do? Well, there are some basic parameters that you can offer. You could set up a direct debit, or you could offer a trial credit limit for a reduced amount. These are very simple, but extremely effective. These should ensure that your customer is not getting overstretched and that you get paid on time. So, what's the third tip? Invoice accurately and quickly. Again, it sounds very simple. So here, Alan Hunt at Reed Specialist Recruitment says, ensure your invoice is correctly addressed with all the information that a client requires to process an invoice, like purchase order numbers, cost center, or budget holder's name on it. Invoice accurately, follow up quickly. Sounds easy, doesn't it? So, living in an ideal world, your client's accounts department would receive the invoice, and then they would tell you if there was an if there was an issue, wouldn't they? What if you send an invoice and it has incorrect or missing information? What then? Chances are they may just sit on that query without saying a word, and you'll be none the wiser. So to avoid these queries and get your invoices processed as quickly as possible, check and recheck that the invoices contain every piece of information that your customer requires. As Alan Hunt advises, is the address correct? It sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how many times it can be incorrect. Do they have purchase order numbers, budget holder names, and cost center? Having got all of this information and made sure it's correct, follow it up. Call the customer 5 to 7 days after sending the information and make sure they've received it and that they think all the details are correct as well. That way, when it comes to the due date, there's no reason to query it from an admin point of view. Hey, it may even result in an early payment, you never know. Another thing you can do is to set up alerts to notify you whether a customer's invoice is above the normal value for their account or within their market sector. It's a really good way to preempt a potential payment problem waiting to happen on those high-value invoices, and we all know those ones are extremely important. So, let's move on to tip number 4. Always maintain good relationships. Talk to customers with a smile in your voice. It will give you that slight advantage when you want to be top of the payment list. And that's thanks to Lisa Austin at Lander Associates. Maintaining good relationships with your customers. Which ones, though? Well, the answer is, of course, all of them. Good relationships should apply no matter how long a customer has been with you or whatever their credit limit is. Because getting paid on time is about good communication. You can avoid the majority of payment problems just by creating a good relationship with your point of contact through regular communication. Yep, just simply staying in touch. Make sure they keep you in the loop. Get your customers and suppliers to let you know about any queries or issues that might delay a payment. Stay in the picture. Believe me, by doing this, you can cut out a huge proportion of those queries that take up so much of your time. And think about your delivery. Think about what Lisa Austin has said. Don't underestimate the power of talking to someone with a smile in your voice. I know it sounds cheesy, but if you want to get to the top of the payment list, why not give yourself that advantage? It's that simple. So, let's move on to the final tip, collecting. Chase, chase, chase. If somebody is ignoring your call because they recognize your number, call from a mobile. From experience, most people answer calls from mobile numbers. That's thanks to Martin Partridge at Bernard Matthews. Nothing gets money in quicker than calling your customer on a regular basis. If you're waiting for a payment, make sure you record notes of your communication. List the names of the people you've spoken to and the details that you've discussed. For example, for every payment that's promised, why don't you ask for a payment date? Record this and the person that you've spoken to, and that way, if the payment date isn't met, you've got someone to refer back to. Finally, mail and/or email monthly statements. It's just another way to remind customers of money's due. Okay, so let's look at all those points. Tip number 1, know your customer. Tip number 2, set up the right payment plan at the start, right at the very beginning of your relationship. Tip number 3, invoice accurately and quickly. Get all of those details, make sure they're correct, and get it sent straight to the customer. Tip number 4, always maintain good relationships. Keep in the loop, stay in touch, put a smile in your voice. And finally, tip number 5, collecting, the old-fashioned chase, chase, chase. Well, thank you very much for coming today. I hope those 5 tips are all very clear and they can help us all get paid on time.